Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been a little bit. I'm filming today's video after having had a really good chat with one of my friends, Jonathan Windmast, aka the Windmaster, aka Majestic Mirth, and a bit of poking and prodding from one of my mates who does a bit of YouTubing, Mark David Teo. You might want to go check out his channel if you haven't already. Today's video is essentially just going to be me clarifying what I mean by the terms move and be moved. It's a philosophy, I guess, that underpins a lot of the things that I believe and a lot of the things that I do. And I can't necessarily lay claim or stake to the fact that it's mine, but I guess it's a phrase I just thought up a while back, and I'm definitely not the first to have thought it up either. But I think it's a good phrase, and I think it's worth looking at. So let's dive into it and look at how it's actually going to be part of this channel. Alright, so with move or be moved, the idea is that you have two things that in some sense are unified, both via moving something or having movement occur, but at the same time they are separate. So one is to move something, applying a force, and then the other thing is to be moved, so allowing a force to apply itself to you. It kind of comes from the whole yin-yang, dualism, non-dualism idea that you'll find in a lot of Taoism and Buddhism. And I think it's a nice phrase because, one, it recognizes that nothing exists without its opposite. I mean, if you look at anything, it has a conceptual base, i.e. there's a concept or an idea, and anything that is an idea has an opposite. But at the same time, it doesn't. So dualism, non-dualism, I'm not going to get too deep into that. But on the other end of things, I think it's also important because, well, in the movement world, we're always looking at how we can move, but I don't see too many people talking about the ways that we can be moved. And one person that definitely does talk about the way we can be moved is John Yuen. Now, when I went to one of his floor work workshops in Sydney, he talked about the way we can allow the floor to give us feedback and to move us in a particular way. And the way he framed it, rather than, and I'm still paraphrasing, but rather than take what I think of his work and apply it, say what he said to us. The idea of making floor work smooth, if we're going to, roll along the floor or whatever, is to allow our base of support to be as close as possible to the next base of support as possible. So if I want to be fluid, I'm not going to go 1, 2, 3, because that's all over the place. I would, curl bit by bit. And hopefully it would be a little smoother than that, But I think that that's something that a lot of people in movement actually don't spend enough time thinking about, the ways they can be moved, both physically in the sense that I just mentioned with floor work, because, well, we like to think that we're the thing that moves, but things are always moving us as well, and I think we need to be aware of it. But also on the other side, we should probably consider things that aren't necessarily physical, because while movement is something that definitely is physical, I think it's pretty hard to debate that there aren't other levels to it as well. So we should probably consider what we're being moved to think, feel, etc. While we move. And yeah, I guess that's a really short summary of what the phrase move or be moved is, and it can be taken a lot of different ways. I like the fact that it can be applied in a lot of different ways in a lot of different settings. And now onto what this is actually going to mean for this YouTube page, because, well, I don't do this without any reason. After chatting to Mirth earlier today, I was mentioning to him that I wanted to start writing essays again, because that's part of what I did in cultural studies, and it's also something that I miss. And he was like, oh, well, you could do like video essays. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I could, couldn't I? It's probably going to be not exactly the same format or the same style as essay writing, but I think it's still going to contain the same points and hopefully be as informative and as structured, because I like setting things out and being on point one by one, so we don't get lost. with the essays that I wanted to write, some were going to be about moving you, normally through logic, because logic can be quite forceful and assume itself as being correct. And I think that in logic, encouraging you to see its correctness, it can be quite forceful, and therefore something that, generally speaking, would aim to move you rather than have you be moved, although you can make the choice as to whether you are moved by it or not at some level. And then on the other side, I'd be looking at essays that are more looking at being moved. So these ones would be a little bit more conversational, a little bit more feelings based. But I think that it's important to recognize that both forms are forms that are powerful, and they're both forms that hold the ability to store and present information. With logic, it's aiming to seem objective, informative, and more correct than the alternatives, because, well, logic is fighting against other logics, and there's probably no right one, we can't be sure. But we'll do everything we can to frame it as more correct, or as a source of information worth listening to, because, well, we're writing it and there's normally a reason for writing something. On the other end, though, I think feelings get a bad rap, but the issue with feelings is that if somebody close to you is suffering or you're hurt, sometimes logic goes out the window, and we can think that, oh, I'd love to think rationally, and I always think rationally, but let's be honest, being rational is almost the luxury of being comfortable. So we need to recognize that feelings and being moved also hold information and sway, probably in most situations more than logic in some ways. And within itself, it is its own logic, because, well, feelings kind of have their own reasoning. And once again, we could argue and not be too sure about this, but I think that's about all I wanted to get across. Oh, and also, I'm going to be doing, at least for the time being, single shot videos. I'm not really interested in cutting stuff up. I don't really know how either. But I had another good chat with DK Movement, Devon, and we agreed that these days it's geared towards, the online space is geared towards people who have short attention spans. I think he's right, and I think I want to agree with him. I think that if you're watching my channel, you probably have a long enough attention span to get this far without me needing to cut anything or do anything fancy. I think what I say kind of hopefully has enough weight to keep you here. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this.